Okay, so German stereotypes, we've all heard them, and I've already talked about some of them on this channel before. But there is one German stereotype which I've always struggled to understand because it's just never really matched my own personal experience. And that is the stereotype that Germans are intolerant of other cultures. Now, this is really a big one, especially for people thinking of moving here to Germany or learning the language or just visiting in general. Obviously, if it is true, you might want to rethink those plans, or at least really think quite long and hard about where exactly you want to go to in Germany. Now, there are quite a few studies out there on immigration in Germany and the attitudes of the native-born population, but I thought for this video, I would really just prefer to share my own personal experiences of living here, and I would include some sources down below in the description box, so if you really want to get a sort of more data-backed view of this topic, then feel free to read through the sources. Just in case you don't know me, welcome to my channel. I'm originally from the UK. I've spent a year traveling through Australia, 2 years living in China. I've also traveled through Southeast Asia, and I've now been living in Germany for over 10 years. And on this channel, I usually make videos about Germany, about sort of German language, culture, and make comparisons between Germany and the UK. In a nutshell, most of these studies which I've pulled up do actually paint sort of the attitudes to immigration and foreign cultures in a fairly positive light. Attitudes do seem to have softened and improved since the climax of 2015. The stereotype that Germans are intolerant of other cultures really is a widely held belief and has been around for many years. And I think it is really based on the perception that the Germans are cold, aloof, and unfriendly. And I'm sure the Germans are really sick and tired of hearing this, but it is what it is. It is a stereotype that still exists. By the way, if you are liking this video, I would love it if you could tap the like button. Apparently that helps YouTube to spread the video to more people. As you might have guessed, I think this stereotype really does, to a large degree, sort of date back to the Nazis. This was obviously a really extreme period in Germany's history, and the German government actually implemented policies of racial segregation and was just generally extremely hostile to other cultures. But this really is a thing of the past. As we're talking about culture in this video, I should probably give a loose definition of how I understand this word. And really, I see culture as an amalgamation of a huge array of things such as ideas, beliefs, customs, language, food, and many other things. And in my experience, this stereotype of Germans being intolerant of other cultures is just really totally false. I've already talked about Germany's attitude to other languages on this channel before. I did a video here about the German love affair, or Germans being obsessed with the English language. And in my experience, Germany really just is extremely open and extremely receptive and welcoming to the influences of foreign languages, not just English, but also Turkish and Arabic. And this really definitely goes against this stereotype of being intolerant of other cultures. And in fact, there have actually been calls from the German government itself to introduce English as a second official language in Germany. Now, part of the reason for this is that Germany really is trying to attract skilled workers and talent to the country. And one of the things that really puts people off is the language itself, but also sort of the bureaucracy and the whole process of getting set up. That, coupled with the German language, just makes it incredibly difficult to get started here. There is, of course, a fair amount of resistance to this idea. But just the fact that this is actually a topic of public debate, I think really does render the stereotype that Germans are intolerant of other cultures kind of a little bit invalid. I certainly could not have gotten set up here without help. When I first moved here, I could not speak a word of German, and just things like opening a bank account, getting health insurance, writing out job applications in German is just really a hugely daunting and overwhelming task. And I think obviously if I'd been able to do this in English, it would have been a lot easier. On the other hand, there is then actually even less of an incentive for immigrants to learn German. So I do see the advantages and disadvantages of this topic. But, what do you think? How would you see this? Do you think this is really the inevitable sort of way into the future for Germany? Or do you see this as maybe sort of a hit on Germany's sense of national identity, and that Germany's DNA will somehow get lost in the process? I would love to hear also from people from Scandinavian countries, because I do believe that Scandinavia is a few steps ahead of Germany in this respect. Let me know in the comments below. Now, before we get on to really the main reason why I just don't understand why this cultural stereotype still exists, I'm really hugely excited today to bring you the sponsor of this video, which is Blinkist. So Blinkist is a German app which takes the most important lessons from over 5,500 non-fiction books, many of them being bestsellers, and really distills these lessons down into 15-minute blinks. When I was thinking about how I felt about this German stereotype, there are 2 books here in the Blinkist collection which were really relevant to this topic. The first one was The Next Great Migration by Sonja Schan. Sonja is an investigative journalist and really details how migration has always been a big part of the human experience. And she also looks at the migrant crisis of 2015 and really pulls apart some of the news stories from that time. Another book which gave me a lot of inspiration was the book Were You Born on the Wrong Continent by Thomas Gilkey. Now, even though this is a little outdated, it was published in 2010, I still found the blinks to be really insightful. So Thomas writes rather critically of the US. He's American, and this was actually before it was popular to be critical of the US. And he writes very favorably of Europe in his analysis of capitalism/socialism. And it was just really interesting to see this sort of perspective through the American lens, which was kind of new for me. Blinkist goes a really long way to solving the problem of people never actually reading the books that they buy. Because the books are distilled into these 15-minute snippets, it just makes it ridiculously easy to learn. The best thing is that Blinkist currently has 2 amazing offers running. So if you click the link in the description below, you can get 25% off your premium Blinkist membership. But not only that, they currently also have the offer running that you can actually get 2 memberships for the price of 1. Blinkist Connect is a new feature which allows every Blinkist premium plan to be shared by 2 different accounts with no additional cost. This enables you to invite a second account to join your plan for free. And even though you're sharing the account, they remain separate and can be personalized to your specific interests and sort of reading preferences. Click the link in the description below to start your 7-day no-obligation free trial. I do think you'll like it. Test it out and see what you think. Another project which I find absolutely fascinating is the House of One in Berlin. This is a project which is aimed at bringing Jews, Christians, and Muslims together under one roof, and it's definitely the first example that I have heard of 3 different religious faiths sort of being connected in a physical space. Now, the building has not actually yet been built, but the project was started in 2011, and as far as I know, there's been a lot of progress made. The overarching vision of this project is really for peaceful relations between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It remains to be seen if this will actually be successful, but just the fact that the project has really gotten off the ground is really quite incredible, and it definitely does not speak to the stereotype that Germans are intolerant of other cultures. Another reason why I just have never really understood this stereotype is that if you like to travel, if you go anywhere really throughout the entire world, you will no doubt meet Germans. And this is purely anecdotal, of course, it's just my personal experience, but I traveled through Australia for a year, and I met Germans really at every stop along the way. So whether that was in the hostel, at the restaurant, on the beach, at the bar, at work, there was people from everywhere, from all over the world. But it was pretty much guaranteed to meet at least 1 German in every place that I stopped. And this was also the same in China. This is one of the reasons that I actually ended up moving to Germany, is because that I met a lot of Germans in China, also in Singapore, in Malaysia, and even growing up in the UK. There were always a few Germans around. As I said, this is just my personal experience, but it does seem that Germans actually really do enjoy experiencing foreign cultures. They love to travel and see new things, at least a large portion of the population. Or maybe they're just trying to get away from the German rigidity, but that is another topic for another day. Now, having said all that, I live in Frankfurt am Main, which is considered to be one of Germany's most diverse cities, so obviously the tolerance level is going to be above average. I myself have never experienced this sort of cultural intolerance, but I am aware that there is definite tension between certain immigrant groups and certain areas of the German population. But it's really very difficult to label this as German intolerance because, like I said, it's really restricted to only certain areas. And if you're watching this and thinking of moving to Germany, there are maybe a few things that you should bear in mind when making the decision of where to move to. So obviously, where do you come from? What is your cultural background and what do you see yourself actually doing in Germany? And how important is it to actually fully integrate into German society? In general, there are just less immigrants in East Germany than in West Germany. And although this is a bit of an overgeneralization, I think it's safe to say that attitudes towards foreign cultures are generally a bit more positive and open in Western Germany than in Eastern Germany. On top of that, larger cities such as Hamburg, Düsseldorf, Cologne, and Frankfurt am Main are just a lot more diverse and really have a lot more experience and are used to more foreign cultures and more diverse population makeup. As I said previously, you can read through some of the sources which go into a little more detail about sort of which areas of Germany are more accepting and more open to immigrants. I think really if you look at any country, even sort of an immigrant country, such as the US or the UK, there are always going to be areas within that country which are a little more conservative and a little more resistant to foreign cultures. I do really believe that this stereotype of Germans being intolerant of foreign cultures is totally outdated, totally false, and at least the government I see often as bending over backwards to really try and accommodate as many people as possible from a huge diverse range of backgrounds. The country is in the process of lowering the bar to German citizenship, and as I mentioned at the beginning, they are reconsidering to implement English into this integration process, just make it a lot easier and more streamlined. Projects such as the House of One in Berlin are really trying to bring people of diverging belief systems together under a sort of common goal, which is extremely difficult, highly complex, and very challenging. So if you are thinking of moving here, or if you are already living here, I mean, the good news is that I see a huge amount of signs for positive change. And in many ways, I think it's actually never been easier to move here and to fully integrate into German society. Once again, thank you so much to Blinkist for sponsoring this video. You can find all the information in the description below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. That's it for now. Thank you. Bye-bye.